And I'm a little bit behind the 8 ball, so I do not have my list of all the members, so I will do my best to call roll. Frank Cannon. Alexa Anderson.
I'm here.
Lori Hunter.
Good morning.
Peter Fishalis.
Present.
Heather Bout.
Hello.
Chris Popov.
Good morning.
Matt Root. This is so silly because I'm reading your names off the screen. I can see you're here.
Present.
Matt Root.
Present.
And Justin. I know you're not a voting member, but
Morning.
hi, Justin. Dawn Corelio.
Good morning.
Russ Hughes.
Here.
And Clerk Booth.
Present.
Don't see Steve Jeske.
No,
I
Matt.
think Carrie's LaFleur is joining us late.
Yes, Carrie is on her way in.
Okay.
Thank you, Gail.
All right. So I think that's everybody. So let's get started.
We should just, Pat, sorry, as you're calling roll, it's occurring to me. We should let everyone know that John Harris is not part of the committee anymore, but Gail Dowd as her official role. And Gail, I always forget what your actual title is, but congratulations. And Gail is officially part of the committee. So I just want to point that out. We got a note from Carrie regarding that.
Welcome officially, Gail.
Thank you.
And
Thank
Pat,
you
I
very
just
much.
want to note, I don't see Matt Johnson yet.
Oh, no, Matt Johnson. That's right.
I did just look at the whole list, though. He's the only one.
Okay, thank you. And you have the agenda in front of you. I am so sorry. I just walked
I
in.
do. I can do this. Actually, Matt just sent, he's having trouble getting into the meeting. Weird. I just got an email from him, so I'll send him the link off the agenda. I have it, Pat, if you want me to take over. I was downstairs. I wasn't, my kids were being loud in the background, so I had to move. Let me just get back to Matt here. I'm sorry, guys. See if I can send this to him.
Dawn,
So
I can do
we've
that.
got an approval of
Okay.
minutes. Yep. So we have first order of business. We got a whole pile of meeting minutes. September 8th, September 15th. I don't know if anyone else had PTSD after reading all these. I was like, oh my God, we met so often in September. September 8th, September 15th, September 22nd, September 29th, and October 20th, which would be our last 5 meetings. So and Matt often has some edits. Hopefully he's able to join us, but I don't know if anyone else had time to read them, has edits, suggestions, changes. Did everyone have time to read them? Thank you for getting the packet out 2 days ago, Ian.
Yeah,
Couple nights
Tuesday
ago?
night.
Yeah, appreciate that. It gave, I know I was not at my computer. I see Matt Johnson, yay. I was out at construction sites all day yesterday, but I did have a chance to kind of peek through them this morning. Does anyone have any edits to any of them? No? Does anyone not? Hi, Matt.
Hello.
Do you need a motion, Dawn?
Yeah, I guess so. If no one had, Matt, we were just taking care of the first order of business, the meeting minutes. Have you had a
Fine,
chance to
thank
read?
you.
I don't know if you often.
Yeah, I've read them. They're all fine.
It's all fine. All right, very good. I do need a motion then, Heather.
Then despite the PTSD that I also experienced going through them all, I will move that we accept all the minutes from, where'd they go? Hold on a second. September 8, September 15, September 22, September 29, and October 20th, all of 2022.
Excellent, thank you. We have a motion. Any seconds?
Seconded.
Thank you, Matt Root. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Let me ask Alexa. How do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Court Booth.
Aye.
Heather.
Yes.
Frank. Frank Cannon. He's off my screen for a sec. He's waving his hand. I'm assuming you're good, Frank. Peter Fishalis.
Yes.
Thank you. Dawn, yes. Lori Hunter.
Yes.
Matt Johnson.
Aye.
Pat Nelson. Chris Popoff,
Yes.
Charlie Parker,
Yes.
Matt Root,
Yes.
Steve Stashewski. Steve not with us still? Okay. All right. No, Steve. Very good. So then next order of business is, let me get back to the top of my agenda here. I think it's correspondence. Yep. Correspondence. Heather, I'll let you take the next two items if you don't mind. Heather,
Yep.
before she heads away on vacation, we're gonna make her do a little bit more work. Correspondence
All
and
right.
communication and outreach. Mhm.
I'm in it for the rest of the day. So quickly on correspondence, we had 3 email, wait a second, did we get a 4th? No, yeah, still 3 emails. All interesting topics. One asking about solar storage and offering some help and input. One asking about construction materials, whether considered wood and what the plan is for wiring of the building. And one, a really interesting invite to everybody. I hope everybody saw it. There was an invitation from a local architect to join a speaker series this afternoon at noon, because we're doing the building committee all day, everyone. Conversation on cognitive architecture that she's giving. So that was all of the correspondence. And quick right into communications. The coffees and everything have been going really well. I want to thank our hosts so far and those who have showed up to a bunch of them or all of them. We've had several, the one yesterday had about 12 people again, similar to the first one. The one in the middle there only had 3, I think, but attendees, that is. But they've had just very good questions, educated questions, people catching up, but also really wanting to dig into the details. The one with only a couple people, we were able to really just have a conversation with those people. But so people seem really appreciative that we're doing this. The word seems to be getting out. There are a lot of people showing up. We'll have the latest building committee report either just went out or is about to. I can't remember if it came through my inbox, but there's another building committee meeting. Building committee report just going out. And that's kind of where we are. We're also doing some outreach to specific groups to make sure that everybody knows that these coffees and information sessions are going on. As we talked about before, the goal this time is not to go talk to every different group in town like we did last time because of the timing, but just to make sure that they all know that these are going on and invite people. So hopefully we'll have a good showing at the hearing tonight. We've been promoting that as well. And one thing to mention that we just got the okay to promote, so the announcement hasn't even gone out yet, but we are doing a first Friday with the League of Women Voters. Pat, thank you so much for setting that up with the League.
You're welcome.
That will be Friday, December 2nd they start at 9:15. Is that right, Pat?
I'm not 100% sure. And let me just remind you guys, I am not available that morning.
Yeah.
I am, and I ran into Diane Proctor in downtown Concord a week or so ago, and she was like, "Make sure it's on your calendar." I said it is. So, so anyway, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It's the 2nd, right?
Yep.
The week after next. Yep.
It's the Friday the 2nd.
First
And
Friday.
we told them that we would help promote that broadly throughout town as well. So I think that's the high level. Matt, what did I
I
miss?
attended a CO Council on the Aging board meeting on Tuesday, and the topic of the middle school came up, and there was no awareness of what kinds of information sessions there were, because they had a lot of questions.
That's odd. Okay, they have gotten our emails, they're on our list, but I will follow up
Okay,
with them.
well, that's good to know. It
Directly.
may just be they didn't see them. Okay.
Yeah, I think they didn't see. They definitely received the information, but I have not. Usually, basically it goes out to lots of groups, and just so everybody knows, it's not as simple as hitting send. You then have to follow up with each of these different groups individually to make sure they got it, and et cetera, et cetera. So I have not followed up with them individually yet, but I will move them up my list.
I have a question, if I might. Heather,
Yeah.
1 second. I see Charlie's hand first, Court, and then I'll let you ask. So
Sorry.
Charlie, then Court.
Yeah, just a quick one. I just wondered if Heather, if you could send everybody a copy of the latest presentation that you're using.
Oh, yes, I was just, yes, we can do that. And then I was just waiting for approval to put it on the site, we're gonna get it on the website.
Well, just,
So-
yeah, if you could just send it out though, that would be great.
Yeah,
Well,
sure, absolutely.
That's
You know
a-
what's interesting,
Thanks,
Chair, and I'll
Charlie.
just chime in. One of the things that I found interesting is we have this lovely document presentation. And what is a big distinction between the coffees this time and versus last time, I find that people attending the coffees are really well up to date. Most of them have all the facts that are in that presentation already. So the coffees have been far more conversational, where people are coming in with, I mean, very, very narrow, very specific questions. So the presentation is excellent, but I've yet to get through it because we are really just, responding to, again, what are very narrow and very specific questions.
Yep, diving into detail.
Yeah.
I also wondered if we wanted to post the presentation that we'll be doing at the FinCom tonight, because it's a little bit different. The slides are all the same, they're just in a bit of a different order. And it's a hefty bunch of slides
Yeah,
to figure out how many we have to take out for town meeting.
Yeah, sure.
right.
I'll send
So
that out
once
to the
that's
committee right now.
finalized too.
If I can send it to you now. I think it's final. It's what I'm going to present tonight.
Okay,
I
great.
can push it out to the committee, Pat, right now.
Yeah, and
Okay.
it's just formatted differently, just so
The blue slide.
information, it's formatted with the blue and the white per town meeting
Oh, Court.
presentation. Yeah, so that's the only difference between what the coffees are using and what is being presented tonight. Different formatting with different rules as far as font size and whatnot, so.
Right.
Okay, does that answer your
Court
question?
still had a question.
Yep, I'm getting to you. Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Court-
But
No, that's all right. I want to make sure Charlie's question was answered, but I think it is. Okay,
Just a couple of comments. One, I think if the slides are already being shared publicly, it should be a given that we put them on the website. I don't think we need permission.
Oh, it was
I
more,
think-
Court, it was more just a matter of, we kept changing a couple things based on things. So I totally agree. They should be up there. We were just in the midst of finalizing a couple things, but so the slides will get right up there.
I think my experience is similar to that's been expressed by Alexa and Matt, and that is that we've got some people coming to coffees who are highly informed, and some people who claim they know virtually nothing at all. I don't know what the middle looks like, but the polls seem to be well represented. In terms of the Council on Aging and our elder community, our senior citizens, of which I am one now. So it used to be we would routinely get a monthly newsletter. I don't think it's as regular as it used to be. So Heather, you might want to check and see what is their means of outreach right now.
Yeah, that's always tough. I've tried to get in that newsletter many times in the past, and usually I send them stuff and I say, this is for everybody, and they don't tend to include it because they often have a space issue. But yes, that's a regular question that I ask them, so I will continue to do that.
And I think Townhouse could help us. Because the last thing we want is 30% of our population claiming they were unawares.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
thank you.
Just to be clear, there's strong awareness that there's going to be a special town meeting and that there's a request for more funding. That fundamental stuff is there. It's really more the background.
Yep. And the copy schedule, by the way, is in the latest issue of The Bridge, which I think will help because that's going to every household. So I think that will certainly help awareness also. We're very appreciative of them for publishing the whole schedule for us.
And I saw it on our website recently. I went to
It is right on our
yesterday or the
website. Now,
day
if you go to
before.
our website, there have been some shifts. We just put a pretty simple update on the front page with the special town meeting and special election dates and an announcement of the coffee schedule. And if it says click here, you get the full schedule of all the dates. So it's pretty easy to find, and all the Zoom links are easy to find right off the homepage.
Thank you. That was my feedback. I tried to join a coffee late after a parent conference last week. I was like, I couldn't find the Zoom link. But
Right,
I got there. Don't worry. But so anyway, thank you for doing that. I saw it the other day and said, oh, good.
Great.
Good for them. All right, Pat,
Yeah, I
you're
just,
clapping and I see your hand. So
I don't know how that happened, but I am clapping because what I Matt say, and Matt, please verify for me, that when you went to the Council on Aging, what you've heard is that the people know this is happening and that we're going to be asking for more money. It's just that they don't have a lot of information about the background and the.
That's right. There's a certain amount of alarm and concern. And so,
Sure. So, but they know that it's happening. It's not like, which is really good news.
there's no problem there. The warrant
Yeah.
arriving at people's houses that helps.
Yeah. So people have ample opportunity then to get informed, but I'd be really unhappy if people just didn't even know it was happening.
as a suggestion, Heather and Alexa, I know we're trying not to do, like, we're not able because of time to go to but maybe that's one that we offer to go to them or have a coffee specific for them. If it sounds like they're, missing information or want to be better informed. As a suggestion, that might be helpful.
Sure, we can
if they're
certainly
willing.
offer it again and see if they're interested.
Yeah, I mean, that's an important citizen group that we should
Very
be
much
sure
so.
to keep them informed and share information. So as a suggestion, if there's time or availability to get to them somehow specifically, maybe we offer to do that.
Yeah, let's.
Yeah, and Heather, I don't know if you guys have a one pager or just something that, like a flyer. I know we don't even think about flyers anymore, but I'd be happy to take some over to the Council on Aging for the Fowler coffee. I mean, that seems to me a pretty logical one for folks who use the Council on Aging to make it.
Yeah, I'd be happy. So the flyer is on the list, but we don't have it created yet. But that's something that, I mean, the quicker we can pull that together, the better. So it would be great to have it. And yes, we would love to bring some over.
Sometimes just walking over to the Council on Aging, you get more traction than trying to communicate. And they're in
Yeah, that would be great.
a leadership change, so they're, but I'm glad to hear people know about it.
Okay, no, that would be terrific, Pat. And maybe even, maybe you even, print out a copy of the slides and bring it over there and offer a copy that way to somebody.
Right, that's a great.
If you could do that, that would be terrific.
I'll take a little notebook over with the slides.
Okay, great. That'd be very helpful. Thank you. Because often it's hard to get through to someone by email.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Pat.
Thank you, Pat. Lorraine, I see your hand.
Morning.
Good morning.
Heather, I'm happy to have our graphics department make a flyer. Just I can work with you to see what's on it, and we're happy to make a flyer for you.
Oh, that would be great. That'd be a huge help.
So you're leaving today on vacation?
Or tomorrow morning.
Okay. So maybe if you and I can just get a couple of emails going on what what is the message that you want to say, and I assume it'll be an 8.5 by 11. We'll design that for you.
That'd be great. Okay, so let's connect, and Alexa, if you don't mind, we'll keep Alexa in it because while I'm out of, I guess mentioned for everybody, I'm going to be out of town and pretty much offline for 10 days. So in that, for the next 11 days, Alexa will be interim communications chair. I'm just dumping it all on her lap.
That's so
Sorry,
fancy, Heather. People are stuck with me.
So yes, Alexa and Lorraine, if the three of us can connect today, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, is that everything on outreach, communication? Everyone knows about the meeting tonight, the public hearing with FinCom. Is there anything else? Are we missing anything before we move on from that?
That's all I have.
No? Okay. All right, so next item is the OPM update. Ian's going to walk us through cash flow schedule and then sort of next steps. I just want to let everyone know, if you haven't already heard, I'm sure you have, but what date was that select board meeting? It was a couple Fridays ago, Matt. I'm losing track of time.
October 28th.
28th, that's what I thought. I was like, was it the 28th? So a couple weeks ago. Hold on, I'm just saying bye to my kids.
So a couple of weeks ago, the select board made a decision about the warrant article. I think that's where Dawn's.
Yeah, sorry. my
It's
my kids
okay.
are off to before school. So anyway, so yes, on the 28th, they voted on the warrant article and the language, and voted to have a number not to exceed as 110 million total project cost. Different than the 115 that our committee had previously recommended they offer on the warrant article. So with that, we've had questions from both citizens and members. What are we going to do? Is anyone worried? That we'll go over. So just so everyone knows, our professionals have thoughts, ideas, recommendations that will come up in the review discussion of recommendations and how to plan any overages, because just as a reminder, our current estimate has us total project cost at 108 million and change. So not a lot of leeway as far as flexibility, but because I think that's an 86, and I'm using loose numbers, it's an $86 million construction cost. That's what the bid number would actually be, because then, as you all know, the soft costs are on top of that. Sorry, one more. Two kids, two goodbyes. Sorry about that. I don't know why they didn't come together. So anyway, so that's where we stand as far as what's on the warrant article. And we just want to plan for, because as everyone knows, we have a 90% estimate coming up around the first of the year, right before special town meeting. And then we go out to bid. I don't know why I have a blank in my mind. Lorraine, it's like March?
February 27th.
What is it?
February 27th.
February 27th. Okay, March. I had March in my head. Okay, so they go out to bid, 2 months after the 90%. So anyway, there's some unknowns still, and the economy is ever changing, as everyone knows. So that's what that third topic that Ian's about to go through with us is. So with that, Ian, did I set the stage for you? Okay.
You sure did. Thank you.
All right, take it away.
All right. So I'll go through the normal business first and then get into the other topics. So going through the cash flow this morning, this is the November update. So these are, I'm sorry, I cut off the titles up here, but these are the actual expenditures in this column. So it's 466, 462 were invoices from Hill, SMMA, and AKF, the commissioning agent, for the previous month. That brings the total expenditures to shade over 5 million here. And these are the estimated values in this column. So looking at the cash flow, this is where we are here.
Ian, can I ask a question?
Yep.
So we've already spent $5 million, and this, I guess, is for Lorraine too, and maybe this is obvious, but if we don't pass the 110 million at town meeting, work will have to start over again. And will that 5 million basically be just blown away? I mean, do we?
Yeah, those are sunken costs.
Yeah, but it's not all lost money, like the programming and stuff, like all the analysis and the original meetings and stuff. That's still valid. It's not like it's all blown away. There's value in there that you'll be continuing. It's not a total restart.
Okay. Is there any way to like a 50% reset or a no?
Can't.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Good. So we're here. And we'll kind of stay on this curve as we move towards construction. And then once we have a general contractor on board and we start with progress payments, you'll start to see the expenditures incline faster here. So we'll probably do a recalibration of this right after we have the bids and we know what the construction costs are. We have an update from the GC on projections for the life of the project. We'll do a cash flow update at that point, but until then, we're gonna maintain these assumptions.
I see.
Could I add on to Pat's point? Pat, were you wondering kind of what the, trying to project maybe what the costs would be for architectural services going forward if we were not to pass? Is that kind of where you were thinking?
Yeah, just what, we're looking at what it costs to delay the project or to start it and get back.
So if we fail or if we don't pass, we'll have to look at the kind of the design development portion of the project again. And maybe Lorraine, you can jump in, but design development would be where we would make big decisions like the size of things throughout the project, the education side, the gymnasium side, and we would make big decisions that would need to be made. And then you would have to restart the 60% design documents and the 90% design documents. So it's kind of like the money that we spend in 60% CD and 90% CD would need to be kind of respent. And that design development portion depends on how quickly we can make decisions on what the project is going to look like. And that's why we can't really put a number on it now, right, Lorraine?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
So just to show you here, these are the projections for OPM and SMMA and AKF for December, January, February. So we're plugging along on that path, working towards 90%, 100% CD sets and bid documents and getting this project out to bid. So these are going to be, somewhere around where your actual expenditures are going to land. These are estimated values. So you're going to continue down that path of expenditures for December, January, February. And then if the vote does not pass, the value that we've plugged in for now was a $600,000 plug for redesign, to go back to the drawing board and do a pretty significant redesign effort thereafter. Does that make sense?
And so that would be on top of what we've already sunk. It can't be
It'd
carried.
be the 5 million plus these expenditures through February, and then another estimated 600,000 for redesign.
Thank you.
Yep. Next up is the project schedule. We haven't put this out there in a while, so we wanted to refresh the project schedule, the total project schedule. But this is everything that we've shown before. We've added a second town process for potential budget increase here. So we plugged in the special town meeting date and the special town election dates on the calendar. And then this is assuming that we're maintaining schedule. We're maintaining a 20-month construction schedule, and then maintaining the projected opening date for February break 2025 for target move-in for the school, and then coming back and doing the field work thereafter and allowing for that process to take place. So any questions on schedule?
I think my only point, Ian, you say fields ready in 2026. So does that allocate time for growing seasons? Is that what that's intended?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. The red is 2 growing seasons. So that would be, 2025 and 2026, basically a year of growth.
Okay. Excellent. Good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. And then diving into more of the detail of the project schedule here, just trying to recap the warrant article timeline and next steps. And I just pulled this slide from the community outreach presentations here. So
so was that date wrong? Didn't we just talk about it being the 28th or the 31st, the second one? I'm looking at Matt because he was there and I wasn't.
Yeah, that date changed. There had been originally a 31st date, but this
Yeah,
20th.
the 28th. It was a Friday or midday
was, it
meeting.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Just so
We
we're
weren't
clear.
closed on the 28th.
Yep. Thank you.
Hard to keep track of all the meetings here, so
Yeah,
my apologies.
I don't know where Matt finds the time, frankly.
I don't.
So that's the 28th. And essentially, we started out with the committee recommendation of 115 million. On the select board made a recommendation, ultimately made a recommendation for the warrant article for 110.
Is it fair to say recommend? Sorry, I'm getting into logistics, but Matt, it was actually a vote, so it wasn't a recommendation. It was a decision, right? Like there's no.
Yeah,
They're the final
exactly. Yeah, it's not
authority
right.
on.
It was
Yeah.
basically,
So,
yeah.
I don't know if decision's the right word, Matt. I'm not going to.
I think that's good enough for a PowerPoint.
All right, very good.
A vote on war, yeah, vote to
Or voted or
submit warrant article at 110. Yeah.
Okay. So what do we have coming up here? We've got the 90%, just looking forward, we've got the 90% CD estimate that we're working towards now. So SMMA is progressing the design accordingly. And we have two possible scenarios here. Estimate under 110, then we're seemingly okay. If the estimate's over 110, then we need to discuss a plan of action here, which we want to get into today. And then we've got January 17th, the motions posted for special town meeting. And then the town meeting on the 19th, the vote on the 24th of February. So.
Yeah, and I just want to note that's during February vacation. So we're going to want to really help people to know to vote early or
okay,
et cetera.
Ooh, that's a good point. I'm not around. Yeah. Oh my God. I didn't even connect that, Lori. Where did that, Matt, can I ask some background on where the vote date decision came from? I guess I'm not as aware of.
I don't know. And this is the first time I've understood that was during vacation week.
Yeah, it's kind of a problem. I didn't realize.
I don't think it's
Lori.
changeable at this point, though.
I thought that, that the vote could have happened as there's no wait period that you had to have between the town meeting and the vote. Is that true?
Well, though there is a practical delay period, which is that we now have a new bylaw that says that we have to send out a information booklet to voters to describe the article, I mean, the ballot item, the rationale for it, and then pro and con statements. So you've probably gotten these voter information brochures, for state elections. Well, we now have this for town elections. And so that means that it takes some time. First of all, you got to get the special town meeting votes so you know what the election's going to be about, and then get the statements and mail them out to everybody. So that essentially creates a 3-week lead time. I don't know why it's this long. So I've forgotten how we came up with that date.
Matt, can we ask that you as the select board chair to approach Carrie and Gail, maybe you have something to say about this. I think that's a significant problem to have a vote in the middle of a vacation week.
Yeah, I just don't think that the declared election date can be changed.
Well, you say you don't think, but I
well, I could check, but I don't think
it were a week later. I mean, I think that having it, if the problem is having the time to get the information out.
Yeah, I understand that. It's just that, again, it may be the case that at this point, now that we have announced that date for an election, it's potentially quite problematic to change the election date.
Well, let's see if
sorry, Pat, I just want to point out, I think Lorraine just said, what was the date? The 27th or 28th?
Yeah, maybe it's not even the 24th.
Yeah,
we're at what error on here, so.
We're finalizing bid documents on the 27th.
27th, so 3 days later.
Advertising in the first week of March.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna look on the town's website and just.
Heather, I see your hand.
Thanks. Is it possible at all to look into doing it the week earlier? Because I will say, I hadn't realized this at all. I'm in shock. I mean, we were
Yeah.
just talking about not wanting a third of the town to be disenfranchised, and this does exactly that, even more so. I mean, to do it during school vacation is, I think it's crazy, to be honest.
Well, I'm seeing it is the 24th as published, so I will raise it and see what happens.
Gail, are you on the call? I can't see.
I am. I actually, well, I will follow up internally with Kari on that as well.
Okay, thanks, Gail.
You're welcome. So
Thank
I'm
you.
having connection issues today, so apologize for not jumping in sooner.
Yeah, just to put this out there, it would be favorable to move it up a week instead of pushing it back a week to maintain the project schedule that we have.
Hold on one second, Ian. I see Matt Root's hand.
Yeah, I guess if the date is not movable, I think we just need to have a really concerted effort about and information about voting from home or voting by mail.
Yeah, mail-in ballots were about half the ballots at the last election.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, go ahead, Ian.
Yep. So the next thing we wanted to talk about is, ultimately we need to have a bid day strategy for the project. And we want to have a number of lines of defense in place for, bid day scenarios. So the first line of defense is one thing that you've already done here, and that's creating a cushion between where we're at from an estimating standpoint to what the current warrant article is. So that's what this illustrates here. The warrant article is at 110 million, and the 60% CD estimate is at 108.3 million. So you've got a $1.6 million difference, a $1.6 million cushion above what we're estimating the project cost to be at this point in time. So,
Ian, and that's for hard cost cushion on the 86 million construction cost versus because most of the soft costs, most are set, right?
Yeah, so this shows the comparison across the board between you've got all the hard costs are in 20 in construction. I tried to line it up so that we're talking apples to apples here with relation to the warrant article. So the 1.6 is the difference between the warrant article and the CD estimate translated to a project total project cost, right?
So the 1.6 is on total project, not construction costs. That's what I'm asking.
Yes.
Because we want to be really clear, it just says difference. And I'm only bringing this up because in coffees and talking to people around town, people are like, what if the bids come in over 110? The bids are not going to come in over 110. Bids are construction costs, they're hard costs. They're the 86 million estimate that we're at. So I want to be really clear. That's why the chart that was there included both total project and construction. Because when people are talking about bids, people that don't know, people that aren't in the business and aren't as knowledgeable, there will be no bids at 110. That's total project cost. That's hard costs on top of in addition to soft costs. So as we differentiate and where the differentials are, we want to be clear if it's mostly in hard costs, if that's, if that 1.6 allows us to go from 86 up to 88 or just under or something like that, as far as what the actual bids.
We're getting there. 2 slides.
Okay, I just want, because I'm getting questions like this and people don't know and they only hear the 110 and that's not where the bids are going to be. So
yeah, the bids are going to be in the 80s is where we want them to be. Okay, and I'll show you those scenarios.
Okay, thanks, Ian.
Two slides down.
Before you go on, I have a question.
Go ahead, Charlie.
You seem to include the old bidding contingency in the 108. I thought the project cost was like 106, 479. The CD estimate shouldn't include, or should it include the bidding contingency?
Yeah.
Because if you look at the hard cost and you add the soft cost, you get 106, not 108. So I think this makes
That's right. That's what this shows. Right.
you have 108.
The 106
Yeah,
is right here.
106, and
There's a
then the
line
bid-
Plus
item
the,
for
plus
it.
the 2 million bid contingency gets you to the 108.3. That's how we've always shown it. And this is how it's been.
No, but what I mean on the right-hand side, the highlighted stuff, 60% CDS in October 22, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
108, 379. Is that really the number?
Yes.
Including the 2 million. So see that line item right above it?
But why
So-
would you include, I don't want to belabor this, but why would you include?
Because we have to borrow it. If
We only
do-
have to borrow it if the bids come
If
in.
if the bids.
Yeah,
come in-
but if see, the estimate is what the estimators came up with, and then you add on top of that, the soft cost of 20 million. That does not give you 108. So just to be clear, I think we're stretching the problem in the right-hand column there, making it look a little bit worse than it is.
Dawn, question.
Sure, Court.
Charlie, are you saying that the 1.6 we see here, we could consider the difference between CD and 110, but the delta between current cost and the 110 is a different number?
Yeah, I think the 110 obviously is correct. I think that the number that we're using to create the difference is high by 2 million because you got the bidding contingency in there. So
our headroom at the present time is not 1.6, is your point.
It's
that's
3.6. Yep.
It's 3.6. Okay, thank you.
So I think that, that is alarming to people. Oh, we only have that.
Comparing apples. Yeah, I'm just trying to compare apples to apples.
Well,
here.
I think
you've got a
but I think it's
borrowing
not
cost.
apples. It's not apples to apples. and I think we ought to
It is
make
apples to apples.
Okay.
It is. You have to factor it in from a borrowing standpoint, right?
We can only borrow up to 110, and that would include the 2 million that was already approved under the previous special town meeting amount that was the 102 and change.
I think Charlie's point is we wouldn't want the public to confuse the 1.6 with the current headroom between estimate and 110 warrant article, meaning we've got more escalation factor than this 1.6 indicates to the public.
But the 102 already included that, I think is what Ian's saying.
The 102.8
Yeah,
included the $2 million.
so that's why he's showing it.
Exactly. I think we all agree on that. Yes.
Charlie, do you still have a question?
Well, I don't agree with the way it's being done, but that's okay. I'm only one person.
Okay, Matt, I see your hand.
Yeah, I think we're going to need, because if we're having a certain amount of confusion here in the committee, we need to be aware that when we go out to have a meeting, we need to have absolute clarity about the numbers and their meaning. And I think that one way is just to think about the uses of the numbers. So I think we need 3 different uses out of here of these numbers. One is, what do we need to get a bid, right? And what's the budget for bidding? And that includes potentially a contingency. The second thing is, what is the total project cost? Because that affects people's taxes, if you will, and they're interested in the tax impact, the total cost of the project. And then the third, which is the source of the decision for special town meeting, is the additional borrowing authorization. And that additional borrowing authorization is 7.2 million, which in both cases needs to include the bid contingency to give the flexibility. So, I just think that the treatment of the bid contingency and the kind of which number to focus on depends upon what type of decision or evaluation we're talking about. I also look at this chart, and one of the things that may make it clearer, and yet I also see kind of why it's there at the end, is I think that the bid contingency, if it were placed below the construction, between 20 and 30, but it would be in some respects clearer, because you'd be able to see, okay, here's the construction estimate, here's the construction estimate with bid contingency, and then here are soft costs. And now we get to the total project cost. And, you know, it's just an idea. Again, I can see why in other respects you want to show total project cost without bid contingency, in which case that 106 number is useful. That's in the subtotal. It's just, there are two different places you could subtotal. One helps us understand headroom. The other helps us understand what is it that we've really totally estimated the project to cost. It is a lot of different numbers, and it's a lot of different reasons to show a number. And I think that may what's confounding us.
For what it's worth, it's not typical to have a bid contingency as part of your total project cost.
I
That's why
understand.
it's listed below the line, in my experience, and I'm just speaking as
Right.
someone who
No, and
does
it's
this.
just that, you know, as we try to add this up, it's hard to show.
It's very hard to show, and as the person who's presenting tonight at the FinCom, you know, this boggles my mind. I would really just like a simple explanation that can be articulated when people ask this. And it seems to me that the issue is the amount of money that we're asking the town to increase the budget. Can we, and Ian, you may have it in a future slide. This is just way too confusing, too many numbers, can't read them anyway. I get, Ian, why you do it, and it's sort of like, for me, this is an example of how confusing this all is, but I'd like a very simple explanation for the uninitiated, because that's who's presenting this tonight, is someone who's uninitiated.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we presented it this way just to show all the cards so that everyone understands all the money that's accounted for in these numbers.
Okay.
I understand that it's confusing because it's something that this group doesn't look at day in and day out, right? So which is why I tried to do it apples to apples and be consistent across the board as we showed the snapshots here for the big picture. And so simplifying it into you know, a different way to present numbers, we can certainly do that, but this is showing all the breakdown.
I think what might be
one way to look at it, right?
Yeah.
My 2 cents on it, Ian, what might be helpful is to show the differential in the bidding amounts, like in the construction costs, like for the different scenarios, what the flexibility on the bid number would be. So to basically take the total project, extract the soft costs, and like, if we come in at 86 million, but the 110 is approved, what's the, like, where's that flexibility, I think, is what the differential to Charlie's point. Like in this case, it's actually 3.6 because the 2 million is included in that. So I don't know, maybe that's
we're almost there. I'm too
slow. All right, keep going.
You know, that's exactly what I was trying to say, Dawn. You said it well. I think the bidding contingency adds confusion. I think the project is really all about the construction cost, and that increases, and it's all about the fact that we have a stable soft cost that we add to it going across. And that is the easiest way to understand this. Bidding contingency is very confusing, and it's not a call out of the 110. We don't have 110 plus or minus a bidding contingency. So I would just ignore the bidding contingency totally and look at project cost plus soft cost, and that explains the project to me. And I think it would be very helpful to Pat to look at it that way.
Thank you, Charlie. Matt, I see your hand.
Yeah, and yet I don't think anybody's proposing to get rid of the bid contingency.
Well, where is the bid contingency then? Do we have a bid contingency that's added on to the 110?
It's part of it, Charlie. That's why he's including it this way. The 102 that was approved back in January, February, included a 2 million, I want to say 16,000, I forget, there's some change with that 2 million of a bidding contingency, of a fluff, of a, just in case. And now the actual idea of increasing this increases that bid contingency, if you want to think about it that way. For it allows for unknowns, right? So it's included in the 110. That 2 million already is in there, and we're basically essentially asking the voters to, to increase that because the construction, the hard costs, we believe, are increasing based on the estimates we're getting. Right?
Well, and you can look right across the construction estimate with VM accepted row, and you can see that the construction budget has increased by 6 million almost, right?
Mhm.
And we're asking for 7.2, essentially.
Okay. Steve, I see your hand, but I want to ask Ian if he's able to finish real quick, and then we can
Yeah,
come back to
can we
this if
move
we
on?
need to. Just
You
in
said there's
case
something
that,
2 slides ahead. I'm excited.
yeah, okay. Thank you for your patience, Steve. I won't forget you.
Okay. Two more lines of defense here. So the next being, so we've got this cushion, and we can debate how this is shown, but this is a cushion between 108.3 and 110 million. Okay. The next line of defense is utilizing the bid contingency, which I'm actually showing here. So I've zeroed out the bid contingency and pushed it up to here, maximum acceptable GC bid if bid contingency is applied. So the next line of defense is the bid contingency and utilizing that. And the third line of defense would be a strategy for alternates. So alternates would allow you to adjust the contract value at bid day, either adding cost to the project or deducting costs to the project from a bid standpoint. So we need to strategize on what that looks like. And we had some thoughts on it that I wanted to share on bid strategy for alternates. So
What's the maximum number up to the top left? I'm sorry, the 89? What's that number at the top left?
89.7, 89,711, 162.
I think the idea is if the bids come in at 90 or above, we're in trouble. Is that in its simplest terms, Ian, what the?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we want it in the
That's an important
80s,
number.
right?
That's the
Yeah.
number.
Is
So
that
this-
helpful, Steve?
That's the number we should all be talking about.
That's how I'm
That's the
thinking
max
about it.
bid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Max construction bid is 89.7.
89.
That would get us to 110 million total project costs.
Right.
That's the simple one sentence.
Okay.
summary.
I like that.
Yep.
I do too.
Almost there, guys. Bid strategy for alternate. So right now we're just looking at two deduct
Can I-
alternates
Ian,
being proposed.
Ian, sorry,
Yes.
can I interrupt? Does everyone know what an alternate is? It's so you design the building or the project with scope in it, and an alternate can be an additive or a deductive, right? So you can add scope as a line item in the bids to increase the cost. If you really want terrazzo floors throughout the building, you can design it with linoleum, but you can have a bid alternate that says change all the linoleum to terrazzo floors. And they put a additive number that says whatever, it's plus $1 million. So if your bids come in low, you really want that terrazzo floor, you can accept the alternate for the terrazzo to increase by $1 million. So that's an add alternate. So the design is the design, but the alternate is either a additional drawing or a spec item that is added. A deduct alternate does the inverse. You design it with scope, but say if our bids come in high, we want to take out that terrazzo floor. So you design it with the terrazzo, you do a deduct alternate to change the terrazzo to linoleum. And if your bids come in high, you save $1 million. I'm using the same example for simplicity, right? So what's being suggested here that Ian's getting to is as a way to control if the bids come in high, that you have a deduct alternate scenario strategy that would take scope out, even though we all want it in. what if the bids come in high? So Ian, sorry to interrupt. I just want to make sure everyone understands that you're designing it one way, and Lorraine can speak to what's easy to design as a deduct alternate, add alternate, and whatnot, and what's not, like cutting the gym in half. And I'm not proposing this, but that's not easy because it affects every trade that works on the building. So not a good alternate scenario, but a flooring scenario change could be whatever, any material change is easy because it's just a spec item and you highlight the areas. So
Some material changes.
sorry, Lori, not every, triple glazing as an example couldn't be because it affects the mechanical system. So that's a material change that is not a good alternate because it affects other trades. So
And one last comment, I think that's important for people to understand. In the public bidding laws, you have to vote, your committee has to vote on the order in which to take the alternates, and you cannot skip. So whatever you put as item 1 is the first item under a deduct to go. You cannot choose to jump to number 3 because that can change who is your lowest eligible bidder. So they have to be taken in order, which is why it can sometimes be a difficult conversation to figure out what comes first. And we don't mix deduct and additive because that just sends the math screwy. So they're either all add alternates or they're all deductive alternates.
And this is a common strategy practice in public bid projects for different reasons. Like I used the terrazzo as an example. I actually just did that. My project came in 10 million under a year and a half ago. We accepted terrazzo, poured terrazzo in lieu of linoleum. So that was an easy add alternate and we accepted it because our bids came in low. So this is something that projects do for different reasons, because desire about whatever the design is versus fear of what the cost might be or unknown of the cost. So just to let everyone know, this is not like an obscure strategy that people don't use all the time. This is often utilized for different reasons. Steve, I see your hand.
Are we saying that if the bid comes in at 106, or the total project cost comes in at 106, we wouldn't be able to say our first add alternate would be to put the bleachers back into the gym because we're entertaining having a list of deduct alternates?
That is correct.
And
It
then my
gets
second
very
question is,
difficult when you make adds and deducts because it gets confusing to the bidders.
I'm concerned just in general with the idea of deduct alternates only because if we're kind of putting, I'd almost rather have a $110.1 million project not go to the floor. We would have a little bit more time to talk about what that means for us, and we would go to the May town meeting with a better product. But that's just me. I have a good, I just hope that we'll be, in the 106, 107, 108 million dollar range, because the 106 is where the estimators said that we would be, and the market seems to be in line with where that forecast was. And I'm gonna have a hard time with this one because I would love to see the first 2 add alternates be the bleachers and the wood ceilings. But that's just what's on my mind. Sorry.
Thank you, Steve. I cut Ian off because I wanted everyone to understand it before we get into the detail of it. So, but I appreciate your feedback on it. And Ian, I'm getting back to letting you, I see that you've gone forward to the different scenarios. So thank you for sharing that. Just one quick, Matt, I assume your question's related to this?
Yes, it is. So I was thinking there are 2 different strategies we could pursue. One is we put the bleachers and the wood ceiling back in, but put them number 1 and 2 on deducts. And then the other approach is to take all the stuff that Ian is proposing today and put them in order as our adds. And so everything would either be an add or a deduct. The difference is that, of course, in the first case, we'd end up with an even higher initial budget with less visible headroom. And questions, I think, from, the committee or from the town are really about, like, why are we adding stuff on at this stage? But then the other approach, of course, is we're going to start with a lower budget. And then maybe that's good because that shows, hey, we're still continuing to to look at ways to cut. But that now through special town meeting, we could get this stuff back in at a minimum.
I really like the approach of adding those two items back in and having them be the first two deduct alternates.
For what it's worth, in my
You mean add
experience,
alternates, or no?
he's saying deduct, he's saying included in the scope. And in my experience, that is the best way to get favorable bids. And I don't know what Lorraine thinks, or Lorraine and Ian, but when you include it in the scope, they tend to not extract it as an itemized number, and you just like I don't know.
What they give you back is generally less than the value. So deduct alternates, they don't want to give away the scope. They want to have the bigger scope, so they're more competitive.
Including it. That's been my experience. Yeah, that's a good way to put it, Lorraine. Thank you.
Yes, same in Hill's experience, and I like the idea of just going one way or the other, because it does create confusion, particularly if you're taking two of the alternates.
Yeah. Thank you, Peter. Okay, Ian, sorry, I totally derailed your presentation, but I just was worried that folks wouldn't understand, and I want to make it really clear that you're designing with a scope in mind, and then you're either adding or you're extracting, and what is possible under those scenarios. So keep going, Ian. Apologies.
Okay, no problem. So just some thought here is that this is two items on the table. This is omitting the field scope, which is a pretty clean cut to take out baseball fields, softball field, and the soccer field overlay, all the fencing and equipment, and replacing it with a typical lawn section. Okay, that's a $1.5 million estimated value for the deduct alt. So that's deferring all the field scope. The other thought here is to do a deduct alt omitting landscaping, and that's all landscaping on site with the exception of plantings for the bioswale retention areas. That's where water is retained. So that's a $300,000 estimated value for that deduct alt, $1.8 million total. And again, these are just ideas that we're throwing out here and to help facilitate conversation. Ultimately, it's the committee's decision on what deduct alts or add alts you put into the project. These go into the bid documents. We have to define them in the bid documents so that the bidders can actually put a price to every single one of these items. So we need the committee to agree on and vote on anything that would be a deduct alt or an add alt for the project. So just wanted to lay that out there. We can talk about it more about strategy, but also wanted to look at some analysis, some cost analysis for bid scenarios. This is what you guys were eager to see here. So trying to translate everything to the maximum acceptable bid value for a number of scenarios. So right now, we're at the 60% CD set. Based on our estimate, the maximum acceptable bid value would be 86 million. It is over 6% change from the construction budget. So that's an overrun. The current warrant article, the maximum acceptable bid value would 87.6, and that is 8.5% over the construction budget. If you were to utilize, so we talked about lines of defense. So we've got this $1.6 million cushion in here between 60% CD estimate and current warrant article. That's first line of defense. We talked about the second line of defense as utilizing the bid contingency. So you're adding that 2 million, utilizing that $2 million for the construction contract for the bid. So that gets you to 89.7 million for the maximum acceptable bid value. That's 11% over the construction budget. And then the third line of defense, and this is the strategy that we need to talk about more, is just the utilizing the bid contingency plus having a deduct alt scenario in the event that the bids are higher than 89.7. So this can take you up to 91.5 million on bid day and still give you the ability to get within the the $110 million warrant article from when you translate it to a borrowing cost. Okay. And that's 13.3% above the construction budget. So for comparison purposes, I wanted to show you where we've seen recent bids come in. So these are design bid build projects. The most recent one we have, the most recent information we have available is a Swampscott Elementary. It's 4.1% over the budget. And that is an actual bid that happened in October. Westwood Elementary is $5.7 million over budget. That was back in July. So both of those are landing here with percent change from construction budget. We're at 6.5%. They were a little less than that. Okay, so we're falling in line with those projects. The other comparison is just CM at risk. Somerset Middle School project was 14.5% over budget. That was July 2022, which falls closer to this scenario here of utilizing all your bid contingency, utilizing your deduct alts, but still being able to maintain the 110 max that's on the table right now. So this is just food for thought. I think ultimately, the message here is that you guys have taken the appropriate action every step along the way to try and account for a bid overrun on bid day. So you have a cushion with the warrant article, you have a cushion with the bid contingency, and you need to set up some sort of a cushion with the deduct alts. And that's the third component that we're headed towards today. But you guys have taken the right steps every step along the way. So
I'm going to ask a question. I don't know if you know the answer to, you or Peter. In the CMAR, the Somerset Middle School, the 14%, do you know where the filed sub bids came in at percentage over?
I don't.
The CMAR?
I don't know.
I don't either.
All right. I didn't think you would. Sorry. That's just more of because the filed sub bids are really the competitive ones and then construction managers have their go-to guys for the balance typically. And that is often where I see the differential being, between the overage of 4 to 5% versus 14. So just curious. Charlie, I see your hand.
Yeah. Just a high level clarification here. The NTE that the select board voted on was 110. Now does that mean that the NTE for the project, after all contingencies are factored in and all bids are received, so forth, we're still looking at 110 NTE, or are we looking at 110 NTE plus a bid contingency of 2 million? Are we looking at a total project cost possibility of 112 million, or are we looking at 110 as the NTE?
The borrowing amount that's being asked for is a not to exceed 110 is my.
Okay, good. That was my understanding.
Yep.
Okay, and my conclusion here is, while we have talked about possibly making a motion at less than the 7.2 that would yield a 110, it seems like, because again, we'll only have a 90% estimate in hand, that we would still be most likely seeking the full borrowing authorization that would yield a potential 110 project, regardless of whether the 90% estimate comes in at 85 for construction, 82, whatever, because we don't know what the bids are going to come back at. And that's important to clarify, because I think in the past we've said, oh, well, we could make a motion for less than, the amount that we're asking for in the warrant. But it looks like this is driving towards an answer of, no, we'll probably ask for everything. We might not end up borrowing everything, but to be able to deal with the possibility that bids may come in higher or different from the 90% estimate, we would probably seek to have the full amount available.
Just my opinion, think that makes all the sense in the world. I think the possibility of lowering it was when we were talking about 115, Matt, and now that that's a different conversation, it seems like I agree with you.
Okay, I just thought it was worth noting.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm okay with that.
Okay. Is that everything, Ian? Do you have more, or do we want to talk about the, Charlie, I don't want to, I know you had sent an email and asked that it be shared, and we included that in the packet as well as information. And I think you had similar ideas about deduct alternates, and you had kind of parsed some of what Ian had proposed as a lump number in the fields, like, you know, kind of take some approach, not all. So I don't want to, you know, lose sight of what you had tried to share and give you the opportunity to speak to that if you want to, but the professionals felt like it was an easy thing to take it all, have that be a future project. Don't lose sight of the fact that that would have to be done at some point, right? The town would have to do a project, I assume, unless there's no fields, but that seems not an ideal situation. So I just want to put that out there for discussion if you want to talk about it at all, Charlie, or if you just want to let people think about it. I don't think that's a decision we are going to need to make. I think we need to have a strategy in place. In particular, Ian, I think you alluded to what happens at the 90%, right? So I think it's wise for us to have a plan in place and to have items that we would consider for deduct alternates. And the sooner that we can tell the design team to draw it that way or spec it that way, the more helpful. And Lorraine, I'm looking at you for like, if I was the designer on this, I'd rather know sooner than later, because you need to get it into the documents that way.
So if I can address a couple of things. So we had talked about what if we just lower the section of the turf field and, not have the thicker loam on a thicker base course with the geotextile as parsing it out of that 1.5. But if you're going to put in your fences and put in the sidewalks and the routes to the dugout areas, the benches, you're probably never going to come back and rip up that field and thicken that after the fact. So that's why we were contemplating keeping it as a unit, because you'd have to remove the fencing and redo all the paths. But that's for you guys to decide. One thing we are going to do is we are going to ask the estimators to break out those two values in the 90% so we can get updated pricing. We are designing it as if it's in the project. So we have to do different details. We have to cloud the drawings. We have to almost create a second set of site plan layout for when they come out. The landscaping is easier. We can put a tag around the landscaping schedule and say, do not install any of, all of these plants fall under alternate whatever. So that's somewhat similar. You'd still always have your landscaping plans should you want to put the plants back in the locations we showed them. So we need to, one of the other good benefits of clean alternates, and I refer to them as clean alternates, is we're not mixing multiple trades. So right now, the fields is a site contractor with a landscaper. The landscaping is the landscaper. If you put the ceilings back in, it's the ceiling installer. It's not everybody else, because the lights are still going in where the lights are going in, and the HVAC is still going in where it's going in, and the bleachers are a single trade. When you start mixing changes that affect multiple trades, you never get your value for money. That's one thing that I've just found in the past. We never get the value for money. So it's nice to try and find alternates that are somewhat single discipline. I prefer to have alternates that are not trade contractors as much as possible, because I think you get a better bang for the buck than the trades, in my opinion, in doing this. So we are going to ask for the field and the landscaping for our estimators to have in the 90% set. We will, between 90 and 100, we'll need to know whether we have to do those additional documents. So it will be important for you guys to decide, once we see that 90% estimate, whether or not you want us to design those as alternates. We've already taken out the ceiling and we've already taken out the bleachers. The bleachers are very easy to put back in. The ceiling, that's going to be a bit of work. So it was a bit of work to take it out. So that one, I'm going to say we would need a quicker decision on if you want us to consider that again. But at our next meeting, maybe we could talk about that at our next meeting and you guys can ponder on it between now and then. But that is a little bit of work to get that back into the documents. So, but just think about, things that are clean. And I know not everyone's in the construction or the design industry, but what would be clear to you on a document that says, I want it built this way, but if I don't have enough money, I want it built this way. Just understand that's 2 sets of drawings for each of those considerations that we produce. So keeping it as simple for the bidders, so they don't get confused, because when there's confusion in bidding, they add money because they don't want to lose, they don't want to make a mistake. So you're not benefiting if our documents are not as clear on those alternates. So that's where it's really important for us to be clear on what we're telling them to do or not do, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Lorraine.
Sure.
Good distinctions and good information for everyone to know. Steve.
So I'm fairly bullish on the number, and I'm wondering if it's okay if I make a motion about what the first few deduct alternates would be, and to ask everyone to include those items that we took out last time as those first 3 deducts, and that we bring them back in. And the 3 that I'm talking about are the wood ceilings, the bleachers, the graphics. And the discussion around that would be ultimately what would be the first 3. I hope that we would come around the idea of putting the wood ceilings in first. I think that's really important. As you walk in the building, I see Lori nodding her head. That's a moment when you walk in the building, you feel like we've done the right thing. For 50 years, we're going to see ACT ceiling tiles, or we're going to see a nice wood look ceiling that's not all that expensive in the grand scheme. And the bleachers maybe bump up ahead of that. I think the graphics, we have a good opportunity to source school students to draw graphics through an art program. So in my mind, that would be 3rd, if at all, on the list. But in my mind, I would like to make that motion if it's at all possible.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Well, the motion, I think, to clarify, would be to add in the wood ceilings and the bleachers as base scope, period. And with a future alternate to be discussed, or we can add that to the motion.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
So essentially what you're saying is we're going to drop the VEs that we came up with for wood look and so forth, drop those VEs, but continue with the add deletes. I'm sorry, with the deletes.
He wants a reconsider. Let me see if I'm saying this right, Steve, if I'm understanding what you're trying to motion. And the graphics is gray to me, so let's leave that out of it. The wood and the for now, the wood and the bleachers, you're suggesting we reconsider the VE that was done, included in the scope, but have it be a deduct alternate. Is that right?
Yeah, because
be the first 2
we can
deduct
only
alternates.
have a list of deduct alternates.
Yeah.
And that's what we're ultimately going to be deciding to do, is list out a bunch of deduct alternates so that we can be sure to have a school come January. And so I'm hoping that the first 2 can be those last few VE items. And if we can afford the original school that we really all felt we wanted before that last cut, which I felt was painful, then we should be able to build that school for the amount of money the town votes in. And if we cannot afford that, we will take that alternate first, because it was decided that was something that the committee wanted to take out to get to the number. And if it allows us to get to the number, then we would do that.
That makes sense. Because it's a different strategy. Rather than just cutting it, you're trying to keep it, but recognizing that it could put us over budget, and therefore you're willing to take those first as deduct alternates, if I'm understanding what you're proposing.
Yeah, it seems like we're going to be developing a list of deduct alternates, and we're not able to develop a list of both add alternates and deduct alternates. So going on what Matt said earlier, I don't know if it was a suggestion or not, but I think I would like to suggest that we add those back in and we take them first as the deduct alternates.
Okay, I understand your motion. I do have a I don't know. The graphics, I voted for those because I do see the value in them, but I also recognize that it's possible we may have contingency at the end of this project that we can spend, and environmental graphics, like I'm adding some to a project that's going to be substantially complete next week now because we have contingency. We didn't spend it all. So as a thought, if that's a different strategy for that, because there are other things that we're trying to keep, just food for thought. Valuable, 100% valuable. I'm all about environmental graphics, but I also see that the number is, it's not, we're not talking millions or even hundreds of thousands. It could be that we decide as a group, if there's contingency left and we haven't spent it on unknowns or things that have come up in the construction, that's a way to utilize that contingency later. Food for
Same
thought.
with bleachers, you just place an order.
It could be, and we had talked previously about bleachers being, something that is a fundraising effort, but I do
Yeah, and if we
understand
don't have
that.
contingency, that's what it would end up being.
Yeah, you're just gonna pay more.
Yeah, so let
yeah.
me just state, because I was next in line, that my concern here is both confusion and perception. So confusion because this motion would change our current budget. It would increase it. Because we would have to put those numbers back in our budget numbers, recalculate all the numbers that we have shared, and then represent them tonight, to the finance committee. And then the second is perception, that we're increasing the scope again. And I understand that, yeah, we're contingently increasing the scope based upon, if we have the extra money, but I'm just saying perception can be reality. This, is coming at a point that is very difficult, I think, when we have a special town meeting here tonight.
Thank you, Matt. Peter, I think this shows up in order. So I see Peter, Lori, Court, Heather, Matt, Root, and Charlie is the order I have.
So I don't want to, I'm going to muddy the waters yet again for a minute, and I don't know if this is the time to talk about it, Don, but it came to my attention that the irrigation system was pulled out of the fields, and to me that's again a short-sighted thing that we'll have to go back and do. The fields are currently irrigated, and it's just going to end up costing more money. So I guess.
Hold on, Peter, sorry. I'm just realizing we're talking about the motion that's on the table, which I don't, well, I guess it's related to deduct alternates. And I do want to ask Lorraine, was it pulled out or never included? I want to be really clear.
It was never included. I went back to the SD. It was never included.
And we were told there's not one at the present time.
Correct.
What do you mean not one at the present? There is.
Is there one at the middle school now, Lori?
Yes. Yes, it's tied up the well, and the well will remain.
That isn't what was shared, so we can clarify later. But okay. We weren't aware. I was aware after town meeting in January that it wasn't in. I never found, Don and Pat were aware, Lorraine was aware, Ian. We didn't know when to bring that up as all this played out. So I have notes to talk with the school committee about it later if the committee wants to reconsider. I mean, to Matt's point, we've been going the other way. So I'll own that if someone wants to say we should have brought it up sooner. That's where we're at.
Yeah, the idea was
on the
that
other stuff too, but
I think the idea was that you were going to have it be a project under the operations or maintenance. I guess I don't know enough about your budget stuff.
Yeah, it would have to be a school committee discussion if we don't do it here. That's the bottom line.
Well, I was just bringing it up now since there is a motion on the table, whether that could be put on as an ad or I know it's confusing the whole thing yet again. I don't want to do that, but it's going to be something that we do, and it's one of these things that I just hate to have the perception, Matt, that you talk about. There's also a perception of you didn't do this right. Why didn't you do it right the first time? And I've seen that so many times in this town, and we end up spending way more money in the long run. So it's a concern of mine.
Thank you, Peter. Lori, your hand's still up. Do you have something?
Yeah, I do. I'm not going to talk irrigation. I said my little information there. I was not present when the vote was taken on the ceilings and the bleachers. That was information I got later secondhand. I feel very strongly those two impacted the program and the educational plan. We used the we use the gym after school for our basketball extracurricular activities constantly. Kids stay. We actually pay a stipend to supervisors so the kids can stay. And I feel like that was a significant decision. The wood ceilings have been on the VE list for months. We trimmed them back. I feel like I was pretty clear on how I thought the impact affected the environment and the learning of kids, to have them get through VE all the way up until that last meeting and then they're just gone was probably one of the most painful moments of this project, which is kind of saying something given our journey here. So I appreciate they're back on the discussion table and hope it'll be considered. And I know the timing's really hard. That is very clear. So thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Court.
Yeah, certainly there's some pain involved here, but there is a plus side, and that is that we're trying to bring $110 million school to the town. So I don't think it's all in the loss column, what we're doing here. I think we would do well to remember that. I do understand, Steve, your strategy. What I wouldn't want to do is send the impression that we have lost our will to bring this in under budget. That would be, I hope, a misimpression. Were this to pass, Steve, what would that do in your estimation to the kind of delete number that we would need to achieve to send a signal to the town that we were serious about the 110? Because it will change our alt delete number. By adding to it, we're going to take it away again. What would be your target? Because
You're asking what the value of the two items I'm asking to be added to the project and then also added to the deduct list is 225,000.
No, I understand that, but your vote to add to the budget would put further pressure on the subsequent decision to put together an an alt delete set of numbers.
So the first two would
Do you have a
be
target?
automatic.
Do you have a target for that that would communicate to the town that we were indeed serious about the 110, if in fact we are?
I don't know if I understand your question, Court. He's suggesting that the numbers could be favorable and trying to keep it in the scope, and it would always be under 110 in that scenario because you would deduct it if it came in over. And that would be the first
thing.
thing.
$106.5 million, even with the ceilings, is what I think, because the estimators include the estimated inflation based on 2021, 2022 inflation. We're late 2022 and we saw 0.47 per, year over year over last year. So I'm feeling good about the number, and I think that we're going to be well under.
Okay.
And I would hate to see that happen. We get $106 million school with no wood ceilings.
So what I'm hearing you say is, were we to add this to the budget, the following alt delete number could be simply the same number and not
exactly.
exceed that.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It's a one-for-one wash.
Add X and deduct X, and
go together.
Your discussion is complete on alt deletes. Thank you.
I would add that there's other opportunities to add to the list of deduct alternates. Number one and number two would be ceilings and bleachers. Number 3, 4, 5 are up for discussion. I'd look forward to that discussion as well. To be sure
that was what I was aiming at. Would we need additional items?
I think the professionals are
items in order to
Yep.
Suggest to the town that we were serious about the 110 and we wanted the opportunity to go ahead with the project, even if we needed deletes beyond bleacher and wood ceiling.
I think that's what our professionals.
And that's what I was hoping to put in. Sorry, right away we could get this add and back out, net wash, understood, so that we can then start digging in a little deeper on what number 3, 4, and 5 would be.
And that was the nature of my question was, what would be the magnitude of those additional potential alt deletes to give you comfort that the project could go ahead?
Like I said, I really feel good about where we're,
Right.
where the estimators say the
Okay.
project will be as of the 60%. I do.
So that's an acceptable risk to you to take those and no more.
I'm not saying no more. I'd like to get to number 3, 4, and 5, but the motion on the floor is to have that add and negative, add it to the project and have those 2 deduct alternates listed simultaneously so that we are
Right.
net zero by taking those 2 first alternates. Number 1 would be bleachers.
One
and
is-
number 2 would be ceilings, and I would not add graphics to my motion.
Yeah, so you have that backwards, Ian. Yep,
Okay.
that comes, yeah. He just said bleacher, so the order you were
So
suggesting is.
graphics is not part of this discussion.
Not on my motion. I don't want to muddy the waters. Sorry, Don.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And that's why I had suggested that's a good contingency spend if you have it. That's within the 110 as a contingency, if it's there at the end of the project, sort of a thing.
John, can I suggest as a co-chair that a strategy has been suggested, and I think if we could vote or find out if the committee is willing to follow this strategy or not follow this strategy, we need to make that decision. And then we can decide what we're going to put on the list. But we're basically, yes, that's what I'm thinking. We need to decide, are we willing to go to the finance committee tonight and explain that in looking at this, we've decided to add back in some critical items so that if the 20% comes in lower, we haven't cut off our noses to spite our face, so to speak. We're not, but we have to decide as a committee if we're willing to do that before we start to discuss which deducts we're going to put on there. So Steve, I would like to propose that your motion is that we adopt your strategy, and then we can spend the time trying to figure out what exactly those dollar amounts are.
So then the motion is I move that we entertain a list of deductive alternates to the project so that we can further refine and reduce the scope and cost of the project if required. And yeah, I mean,
So
do we need a
does that
motion to say
motion
that?
still include sorry, just a point of clarification. Does that motion still include putting the ceilings and bleachers back into the budget?
Yeah, and the first 2, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're all on the same page here, I think.
Yeah, I just
No,
wanted to
think
make
that-
sure because
I'm all in on specifying deduct alternates. I'm not all in on adding scope and then specifying deduct alternates.
That's the only way we can do this. And that's.
No, Ian came in here with deduct alternates that we could consider independent of adding to the scope.
So
First,
here's my suggestion.
Yeah.
It's a discussion about how and what those deduct alternates are. I think right now, as a committee, we should agree that this is a strategy of deduct alternates we're going to utilize. And then to someone's point that, we talk about what that is and we can individually decide if there's added scope to get us there. So, hold on, Pat. So there's a motion on the table about adding the ceiling and bleachers. That I don't want to lose sight of that. We seconded it. We were in discussion. Do you want to withdraw that?
No,
Steve, or you
I'd
want
like
us
to
to
make
vote
the
on it?
motion, restate the motion. I would like to add in the bleachers and the wood ceilings and simultaneously create a list of deductive alternates, starting with ceilings. Second would be bleachers. With the expectation that the committee would continue adding to the deductive alternate list. And that is the motion.
Okay, and
So
I think you had
Can I-
seconded it, Heather.
I did, and I will second again, but I just want to clarify again. A minute ago, Steve, you had said that you were specifying the bleachers as the first deduct alt and ceiling second.
You did say that backwards. I don't know what your intent is,
So,
Steve.
and I
What's first?
actually think I like it with bleachers first better, although I would look to our superintendent for her thoughts on which should be first. I don't know if you want to specify first, second, Steve, or if you want your motion to just say that those two will be the first two.
Nice thumbs up is first two, just generally first two, and we'll talk about.
Okay, generally
order
first two,
later.
and we can look in order. Okay,
Okay.
then
so
I
that's the
second that,
motion
I
and you're
re-second
seconding.
that motion.
Okay, let's have a little bit more discussion before I call the vote because Matt Root has been patiently waiting and Charlie, I see a bunch of hands, so. Right.
Okay, so can I just finish while I have it? And I'd
sure,
really
Heather,
like to
that's fine.
voice a quick opinion on this. I feel strongly that we need to listen to Lori Hunter on what she just said here. We all made a commitment early on to not cut into the ed plan when we went through our value engineering. And I think we failed on that and we need to correct that. And to Peter's point, it would be very short-sighted to be cutting things that are a long-term need. We have to do this right. We can't do this in a way that we cut $100,000 and then we haven't done the building right. So we have to the point of confusion and perception that you made, Matt, even about tonight. Again, I think if we're thinking about confusion tonight, that is short-sighted. We need to think about what the building should be long-term, and it should have these ceilings and bleachers. So I just want to encourage everyone to think long-term, not short-term. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Matt Root.
Thank you, John. I guess I'm hoping to hear a little more input and thoughts from Lorraine. It was a very painful vote last time, but I thought that was kind of the final word based on directive from the design team that they needed to know. And now she's done work based on that last decision. And how much does that impact us to change that decision? So I know you said what you said earlier, Lorraine, and I heard you. I guess I'm wondering if you could expand a little bit more just on your thoughts about this current path of DDA.
So I will tell you that, it's never great to put something back when we've taken it out. I know my team will not be happy. We spent effort to remove it. The bleachers, I will say, are easier to take out, but it's still effort. The only caveat that I will add to that, Matt, is that, as an architect and as somebody who designs schools, I value the feeling that you're going to get walking into that space with the wood look ceilings compared to walking into that space with an acoustical ceiling tile. I know people don't necessarily believe in emotions when it comes to that, but it is an emotional event for students to walk through those doors every day, and making sure that we can create an environment where they feel welcomed, embraced and warm is really important. I've been texting my team while we've been on this call to see if we can go back and salvage, we archive our models a lot, and to see if we can salvage an archived model to recoup some of that time. I would not want to open the door for revisiting everything. That really would concern me. But I do feel that the environment that ceiling space creates is worth it. I really do.
Thank you for that feedback, Lauren.
Sure.
Thank you, Matt, for the question and Lorraine for the response. Charlie?
Yeah, I think we took those votes on the VE in an attempt to reduce the cost of the building. I think that they may not have been perfect votes, but those were all about reducing cost. And we used the list that was provided by Lorraine and Ian. I don't know who created the list, but it included choices that were not necessarily attractive. And we went and took some of them because we felt a need to cut down on the overall expense. And I don't think the NTE from the from the select board means that, gee, we'll give you an NTE of 110 million. We really would like to see you spend all of it. I don't think was the intent there. So my reading here is that, gee, we are through this action, if we do it, we're going to increase the cost of the building one way or the other, unless, of course, the bids come in over, total project cost comes in over 110. So I just think we should keep that in mind here, that, that's what we're doing. We're backtracking on the need to reduce the overall cost of this building, and we're in fact increasing it. So
I guess I'd counter with, you're assuming it's increasing, but I think Steve's point is he's hopeful that the bids are competitive in a way that doesn't increase it. If
well,
you look at it
it increases it over a project where you don't have those things in it. So all things being equal, if you have bleachers, the building is going to cost more than a building that doesn't have bleachers. I'm not arguing pro or con on bleachers. I'm just saying this is the effect of the decision.
I guess he's thinking that, so there's value in having bleachers and they cost something, but I guess
I know, yeah.
Hopeful that other costs will come in lower than expected in order to be able to afford them and have them. So, okay, Pat.
Yeah, I just want to comment, Matt, you discussed how this is going to be confusing and the perception that we've added now back, we've sort of erased some value engineering. Frankly, I find this easier to explain than the budget and the contingency line and all that. When I look at been happening with other schools, and they're going from line with a 25% increase from budget to bid to back in 21 to schools that are now seeing 4% and 6%. I am encouraged that inflation is going to start to flatten, and if it does, it would be a real shame to have value engineered out some really valuable pieces of the project. So it's easier for me to explain. Yes, the committee determined that we would undo some of our value engineering, but what we've done is put those items into deduct alternates so that we can remove them if we go over the budget, the 110 million. My 2 cents.
Thank you, Pat. Court.
Yeah, I'll be very brief. I would very much like to support this. However, I am going to find it difficult at best to do so if I have no idea what the alt deletes are that are going to follow this. I need to understand this in its entirety, and to do this piecemeal is to leave me very uncertain about what's going to follow this vote. I am not comfortable voting for this absent the other information we would bring to the town. If we are fortunate with our bids, then this vote, should it pass, would guarantee that the wood ceiling and the bleachers are back in, done, no decision made. But again, absent the cautionary alt delete list, I'm left guessing what's going to follow. It doesn't give me confidence.
I guess I'll just say that the professionals proposed 2 additional ones and we haven't necessarily talked about them. So
exactly, and I'd love a fuller context on what that would look like to help me guide me on this vote. Thank you.
Alexa.
So, what I'm noting over and over again on this committee, we talk so often about honoring the constituency of people in Concord who are looking for this project to be at low of a cost as possible. And we never advocate for, or we don't ever discuss what I perceive to be an overwhelming majority. And I say an overwhelming majority based on the way the vote went at town meeting, the correspondence that we receive on this committee, the interactions we've had in our coffees of the constituency of people who are less concerned about $225,000 going back into the scope and are more concerned with getting this project correct. And we do have a history of, you know, I look at the high school now as someone on the school committee. We are continuing 10 years later to spend money year after year. And, you know, the school committee is left holding that bag of completing the high school project. So, you know, we have an opportunity to correct some stuff here so that we get a project moving forward that is correct. And I do think there is a majority of people who would vote for that, and who want that and expect that of us. And we don't ever talk about them. And that could, you know, it just concerns me greatly because, you know, we're not getting, you know, we all talk about this constituency that's looking to for a low budget. We don't receive correspondence from them. They're not attending our coffee. So this mystery community just hasn't presented itself to us, and we talk about them a great deal. So I do think there is, I don't know. I think Steve's motion is a good one, and I'm inclined to support it, and that's why. Thanks.
Ian, I think you had something related to inflation you wanted to say, but I don't want to lose sight of the fact that we're discussing the motion. So as long as it's related to the motion.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that you guys are informed, and this is something that's in the presentation for the community outreach. I'll show you the slide here. So we did an analysis of our own through multiple sources, trying to track annual construction inflation in relation to world events and things that are happening over the past couple of years. And I'll keep it short, but you know, essentially we've got pre-pandemic inflation at 1.2% for the construction market. And then you start to see an uptick as we have the pandemic and supply chain issues and you know, the invasion of Ukraine, oil spikes, Texas deep freeze, things that are impacting material market. And so 2020, you start to see the increase. 2021 is where it's peaking. 2022, we're in Q3 here, and it's still high. It's still greater than pre-pandemic inflation, but we are seeing what we think is a flattening here, and we don't know, you know, what 2023 holds for us, but this is the way that it's trending. So, but yeah, you know, so I think that's kind of helpful to put that into perspective. So where we're at right now is we have a 60% CD estimate that takes us into 2023, that escalates the project to 2023 with the best information that we have available and what we think prices are going to be in 2023. And that is, you know, as Steve said, and I think what Charlie was arguing as well, is that the actual estimated cost is 106 million, right? So that should help you feel pretty good about how much cushion we have in place to the 110. We're talking about where we think this project is going to land bid wise in 2023, right?
Thank you, Ian. Information that's helpful as we discuss this. Are there any other discussion? And is there any more discussion on the motion? If not, I'll call for the vote. No? Okay, I'm going to call the vote then. So the motion, just to remind everyone, is to reconsider the value management items of the wood ceiling and the bleacher reductions taken at the last meeting for consideration to include in the scope, but to include them as the very first to deduct alternates as a way to keep them in the scope, but recognize that if they bring us over our bid number, those are the first to go. So did I say that right, Steve? That's how I understand it. That's how my brain's wrapping its head around it. So rather than take the strategy of it's gone, it's forever gone, it's value managed out.
It would be the first
Suggestion
two, yeah.
that
Let's
it be-
discuss the order later. Discussing order right now doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
So
not
let's
about the
discuss
order,
it.
just the fact that those.
Just so that it's a net zero change to the product. If we were requiring additional funds over one time.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Court, I see your hand, and then I'm gonna call for the vote.
Yeah, I'm still trying to support this. Could you tell me, Dawn, what those items 3 and 4 were on the list from the architect or the OPM, please?
3 and 4, meaning,
It was the fields,
oh, the fields and the.
and the landscaping right now.
Right, and the reason that I'm not asking for number 1, number 2 is because we can discuss order of which ones would be, in the future. And I think there's plenty to talk about over the next 2 or 3 meetings. Lorraine did say that she wanted to know about the ceilings sooner than later and to eliminate the cost expense of that. I think adding these 2 as the first 2 items.
So it's not so much a decision on all of the alternates. It's a decision to include that in the scope and take the strategy of those being deduct alternates in the project.
Yes.
Okay, does that answer your question, Court?
Yeah, we certainly haven't discussed these recommendations. I'm not certain we'd all consider these legitimate choices, rather maybe just pushing something down the road. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna call for the vote, and I do know that we have Dave Wood with us and we need to get to him. So, okay, I'm calling the motion. Alexa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Court,
No.
Heather,
Yes.
Frank. Does anyone see Frank?
I see him.
Wait, sorry.
Wait.
So-
He's
Frank
the no.
votes no.
Okay. Hold on, let me get back to, I'm trying to keep track here. Peter,
Yes.
Dawn, I'm a yes. Lori,
Yes.
Matt Johnson,
Nay.
Pat Nelson. Pat, did we lose you? You're muted.
I'm sorry, yes.
Okay, you're a yes. Chris,
No.
was that a no?
No.
Okay, sorry. I think you unmuted and muted so quick. I only caught part of it. Thanks, Chris. Charlie Parker,
No,
Matt Root,
Yes.
Steve Stashewski.
Yes.
Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 no's, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yeses. Do I have that right? Can someone check my math?
I think it's 8 yes to 5 no, but
8
I
yes.
had 8-5 done.
8-5.
I
Okay,
had
good. I'm glad I asked for a math check. All right, so that motion passes 8-5. Okay, so I think there's plenty more to discuss on the deduct alternates, and I don't know if folks want to do that today, but I do want to try to get to Dave Wood's presentation, because that's been requested quite a bit, both internally from our committee as well as from the public. So if we can pause on this, and if we need to come back to this discussion, I'd like to go ahead and give Dave the floor and let him give us, just so everyone knows. Dave, what's your official title over at CMLP?
I'm a light plant director.
Okay, thank you. So he's the CMLP, the light plant director, and welcome, Dave. Sorry to make you sit through so much meeting before the presentation. I actually, because I think we found out yesterday you were going to give us an update, and we're very appreciative. As everyone knows, there's a CMLP project that's in parallel to our project, and there's quite a bit of coordination that needs to happen. And that's a project under CMLP, and lots of questions about where that stands. We know it's under design. We had previous updates, but haven't had one in a while. So Dave's here to talk to us, answer questions, and give us an update. So is that enough of an intro, Dave, to give you the floor?
Sure. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Sure, thank you for coming.
So there's a couple different pieces that I'm going to go over. We have Solar Design Associates doing the design of the array. They're moving along through that, coordinated with SMMA regularly. We just sent an update on the plans last week. So that continues to move forward. Currently, we have in the design enough solar output to cover the building's needs, which is the goal in the beginning. So far, so good. We've started the permitting process. We're early on. That's going to be a challenge. We know that, but we're working with planning and land management on that. In terms of the site, SMMA has a laydown area for us for the transformer, future battery, and all the stuff we need. And so internally with our engineering team, we're in the final stages of the design. We're going to have that complete by Wednesday of next week and sent out to SMMA. It is a complicated design. It's not like a typical school where you're just running a primary line and putting a transformer in. We have special protective equipment for the solar array, for the battery in the school. And that piece is something that normally on a normal school project we wouldn't have, but it's needed based on what we're doing. So that's been a little bit of a slow up for us, but we're working through that with the vendor still. We're working on the cost estimate for the distribution design and installation, and that will also be done and issued to SMMA on by Wednesday next week at the latest. There's a couple pieces that are special to this project that we normally wouldn't have to do. We're going to bring in our consultant for coordination. Again, protection of the array, the battery storage device, and the building all need to be coordinated. So it's a little bit different than a typical project. Additionally, we've already reached out to our transformer manufacturing to get pricing and estimated delivery times. They're all over the place, as I'm sure you guys can imagine. So we're getting lead times of 2 to 4 years. The good news is we can supply a transformer. We have some in stock. It would, be a little bit of a challenge, but we're working through that as well. And then I think for the most part, that's the major piece. I think the big piece that's sitting in our court that SMMA needs is the finalized distribution design, and that will be sent next week. One thing that is worth mentioning, that protection device that I mentioned, we're not going to have the base specifications for that yet. So that's going to come in after the fact, but we'll have kind of a footprint for it. So that's the one piece that we won't have by next week, but we'll have everything else.
Okay, thank you, Dave. I had a question and I should have written it down because now I've lost it. So I'm sure I'll remember it and then ask at some point. I want to give any time to committee members that may have questions. Oh, I know this. I do have a question and I did remember it. I apologize. I think what I'm hearing is that there's fear that this may not happen. And is there any sort of indication, and how will this be funded in a way that we can ensure that this is going to happen? And if you don't know the answer, that's okay. But that's what I'm hearing, and from community members saying, oh, are we sure that's going to happen? How's it being funded? And the answer I previously got when I asked that question was that it would be through customers, and then maybe it would have to go to the town, and it was unclear in the answer that I got, and maybe it's still unclear, but I do think that there's a fear, because I think there was supposed to be a project maybe at the high school. And again, I'm new to town. I've only been here 5 years, but there's a history of possible projects that didn't happen. So I just want to put that out there, Dave. And if you don't have answers, that's okay, but.
No, it's a good question, and it's an important one. In terms of funding, it's a light plant project. So the funding, the way we go about the funding, we'll go through the light board. It's been mentioned, the light board, that it needs to be discussed. It's expensive. There's no question about it. How we approach it in terms of, do we fund it through depreciation funds? Do we do a borrowing for the array? Or, do we use a third party and do a purchase power agreement? There's there's a number of options that need to be talked about. And they're going to be talked about. And in addition, the chair of the light board and I were talking yesterday, and we're ready to have, a public session on this to get input from the community.
Oh, good. That'll be
so-
helpful.
Yeah, so we're going to work on scheduling that. That's going to be coming up. But,
Great. And that's
you know,
Brian, right?
Yeah, Brian
Yep.
Folds.
Great.
And so, when we talk about the funding piece, we don't have a finalized decision on it yet. But knowing that the community wanted us to move forward with this, we, started the design, and worked on the distribution design and all that, because we do feel that it's going to move forward. It's just a matter of what is that funding mechanism going to look like.
Okay, that's great, Dave. And the commitment to designing it and spending the money, right? Like you're paying SDA, Solar Design Associates to design it is a level of commitment that I appreciate. So thank you for that and look forward to the public. Is it a hearing or a meeting or a feedback session, whatever you're.
Well, that was the question that I had yesterday, and we haven't finalized that. When we've done these in the past, we've done them as light board meetings where we present a project and are looking for public feedback. I would suspect it would be something similar to that.
Okay, yeah, great. All right, very good. And for reference, is it power purchase agreement or purchase power agreement, however the PPA is worded, that's what Lincoln, for those that went on that tour and talked to that client about, they're doing a PPA, just for reference, so.
Yeah, and we're not new to PPAs. We have them. We have many of them. So
yeah,
there's definitely different options. The one thing with PPAs that, can slow down is the contract negotiations. So we're pretty good at them. We've done them. We have, 2 in place and 3 in place in town right now for large scale solar. So we have a good template to work off of.
that's great. And in my experience on projects I've done, we make them solar ready and then the town often will do a PPA after the fact and put it on the building, just from my experience. I've never actually included it in my project. It's usually an after. We just prepare for it. So, okay, great. I'm going to ask, thank you, Dave, for your answers to my questions. Does anyone else on the committee have questions for Dave? Or Lorraine's pointing. Are you
I'm
pointing?
pointing at Chris. Chris has his hand up and Charlie has his hand up.
Why did those don't show for me? Oh, I'm on page 2. I'm sorry, Chris. I had people open, but I was on the second page of people. Okay, Chris, you're first and then Charlie. Thank you, Lorraine.
Dave, thanks very much for that. It's super helpful, and thanks for all the hard work you're putting into this. Just a couple points, I think. So for folks who are new to this, the PV array infrastructure you're talking about is both structures in the parking lot and rooftop solar array. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So the idea is that with all those together, the goal is to generate enough power to fulfill, enough electrical power typically to fulfill the building's needs.
Yeah, and it's rooftop maximized, but it allows for just the other stuff that needs to be on the roof. It takes into account shading on the roof, and then there's canopies in the parking areas. And
then just the other point, apropos of the battery, I suspect some of the challenges there are also dealing with fire protection issues with respect to the battery. Is that right?
Yeah, so there's a lot of pieces with the battery that we're looking at. I think the important thing here is we're going to have the lay down area for the battery ready to go, and the battery could come after the array. We have to figure out the logistics of that, but we want to have the provisions in there so that we can put it in when we need to. And if it's at the beginning, great. If we can figure out all that, if it's after the fact, that's another option as well.
Thank you, Dave. That answers your question, Chris. I assume you put your hand down. Awesome. Thanks. Charlie.
Yes, we could receive documentation through Lori on the layout. That was an SDA document. It was quite comprehensive and it was very helpful. Have we had any documentation since, or do you have more documentation now? And I ask that because you mentioned that there were quite a few very specialized requirements and complexities. I don't know that we have to wait till the hearing to hear about this, but it would be helpful if we had whatever documentation drop you could give us at this point.
I think he said he was having that next week, Charlie, if I understood.
Oh, is it next week?
Yeah, that's what Dave, I'll let you speak, but that's what I heard.
Yeah, I don't know what version Lori gave you. I think it was probably one of the early ones that I gave.
Yeah, that was quite a while ago. Yeah.
Yeah, so they've made adjustments to the design. It's not significant. So what you're looking at is pretty similar. There's been one section of array that's been taken out and relocated. The output is still pretty much the same. So yeah, all that will come next week and
Okay, I'm good with that. I'm okay. I'm done with my question.
Great. And Dave, when you share that, Lorraine, others, if we can get a link to that and share it out to the greater committee for folks who are interested and want to see those drawings, that would be helpful. We're happy to do that. Okay, great.
I have one other quick one. You mentioned that we were in Lincoln, and I don't know whether you want to hear the feedback, but very quickly, there were two issues that came up. One was lighting. They had significant pushback on lighting from the town. As issue number one. Number two, there were issues around ice in the parking areas that was dealt with by putting in drains and I guess some sort of French drain type system. So it was interesting. You may want to check in with them. It may be helpful to you, may not. Just make it as a suggestion.
I think Jen Susie, is that how you say your last name, Jen? She indicated when we were out there that they were already working with this group to mitigate that. And I think the light output had to do it. That's usually a regulation. You can't put light out beyond your.
That's right. It was too much light, much light extending out.
So,
that's right.
I think both of those have been, our team is already working on not having that be an issue here, if I'm understanding them correctly.
Yep, that's correct.
Great. If any other questions, because I do have a public, one of the correspondence that we talked about, I just wanted to read it. Dave, I don't even know if you've seen this and I don't want to put you on the spot. If you don't have answers, we don't necessarily have to, I'm happy to forward this email to you, but this came in maybe a week or so ago and I just got back to her yesterday and mentioned, hey, I just got confirmation that Dave Wood was coming. I don't see her on the meeting. So I was going to read this woman's letter just for public information. There were a couple questions she says her name is Haley Orvidal and she's lives at 76 Upland Road. She says, hello, my husband and I live in town, have not paid too much attention to the middle school project since clearly a lot of people are involved and have been for a long time. I'm coming in pretty late here, but as I'm on the planning board as well in Concord as well, I just finally had reason to look at the plans last night and today. I did not realize we were planning on not only carport solar, but also a battery, ? I'm a solar developer. My husband's an engineer who costs batteries for standalone applications in the US. We have had several others in town who work in this space as well, who may be worthwhile to sanity check assumptions with. As I understand, we're up against the select board and FinCom's tolerance for cost increases. So clearly she's not understanding this is actually a separate project, but we can clarify that. I'm going to send a note to CMLP as well. So I don't know if you've received anything, Dave, but I thought I'd reach out to you folks in case at all useful. I couldn't quite tell if the battery and solar is in the current budget and that will be going to town meeting this next special town meeting. Can you confirm? So I'll get back to her on that, which it's not. Is the system size to meet load of the building? The total capacity I saw planned seemed pretty high. So it's beyond just the building, if I'm understanding it correctly, Dave. The last thing I wanted to mention was that with the federal bill that was passed, IRA in parentheses, it should hopefully be possible for municipalities / public entities to receive reimbursable tax credits in quotes or renewable energy / storage, i.e. cash refund of 30% of CapEx. Has that been explored and applied to the budget analysis? So I just wanted to share that, Dave, publicly and for your information. We received that. Clearly we have a contingent in town who is knowledgeable on some of this, and if there's ways to utilize their expertise, or if this is already information I can get back to her on the project related information. But as it relates to the solar design, I wanted to just share that.
Yeah, we're well aware of the 30%. We're looking into it. It's an important piece that's going to help us determine what direction we go in, whether it's the PPA, a lease or outright ownership. So some decisions that haven't been made yet on that area, but we're well aware of that.
Okay, great. And the bottom line is it doesn't change the 110 or our budget for the building project because it's actually a different project for the solar. Okay, we're just making it solar ready in collaboration with your team.
Yep.
Very good. Okay, Court, I see your hand.
Yeah, quick question, Dave. What's the budget number you're carrying at this point? I think we last heard one very early in the process.
So the most recent budget forecast number that I have for the array is just over 5 million. The battery, we haven't got an updated prices yet.
All right. Any other costs that you're waiting for other than the battery, or is that all in with the battery?
Just the installation of the distribution system that we're working on right now. And like I said, it'll be out Wednesday.
Thank you.
Okay, is that all, Court?
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Anything else for Dave? No? All right, excellent. So Dave, we look forward to seeing where things are at next week when that information is shared out. And, feel free to, anytime there's an update, we'll certainly request it if there's information that's needed or folks are curious of where things are at. And obviously we'll participate when the public information sharing and feedback happens. So thank you for hanging with us this morning. I know it's late and apologize for everything leading up to this as far as having to wait to hit that agenda item, but very much appreciate your time, Dave.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And if you need me to come back anytime, just let me know.
Excellent. Thank you. We know you're a busy man. We'll try to keep it to when we need to hear from you. So thank you.
Sounds good.
All right. Appreciate it, Dave. Okay, where are we on the agenda? Because actually I don't have the updated one that included Dave, which is part of the reason I'd forgotten he was here. So apologies for kind of inserting him out of order, but I didn't want to lose him since we were getting late. I know we need to do a permitting progress and we need to further discuss any alternates. I might propose, being that it's 20 of 10, that we set up the next meeting and continue that discussion. I think the general idea is that we are going to utilize a strategy of deduct alternates. We've already got a couple on the table and more that are being proposed by our professionals and, need to be discussed and vetted. And I think that maybe warrants another meeting.
The next scheduled meeting is December 15th.
Do we think that's okay timing wise? And I guess I'm looking at the professionals. And Steve, I see your hand. I'll get to you in a second. That's okay, Lorraine?
It is, but
Yeah.
I have one request.
Okay.
So I'm sure people have lots of ideas on what could be a deduct alternate. So I would request that between now and the 15th that they send them to you, Dawn and Pat.
Yep.
Because, I'd like our team to be able to look at them before the 15th and say whether or not that is in fact something that we can achieve on the documents. So it'll be very difficult for me to sit through a meeting and have people throw ideas at me. I need to, I want to be able to be responsive. So I would ask that people do it ahead of time and I'll come prepared.
Okay. Do we want to say maybe the Friday before? Is that enough time? That gives a full week after the holiday next week. Is that right? Or 2 full weeks?
Yeah, by the 9th.
By the 9th?
How about the 7th? Could we do the 7th?
Do the 7th, that would give us a full week.
A full week to, okay. All right. So by the 7th, anyone that thinks they have a proposal on the table for a deduct alternate, and we're only doing deduct is my understanding. We talked about that, add, deduct, and trying to keep it all in one bucket because it keeps it clean and not confusing to the bidders. So deduct alternate ideas through Pat and I, we will forward to the professionals and they will have time to, respond and or include as part of the discussion for not only what should be a deduct alternate, but also, and just as important, the order. So we talked a little bit about that today with the wood and the bleachers.
And you don't need to have the order on the 15th.
No, the order can come. We just need to keep that in the back of our minds because that is an important.
The order by the January meeting.
Okay. All right. Does that make sense? So we'll talk about what the deduct alternates are and then decide the order the next meeting.
I'm thinking it might be helpful for people to get, once again, the list, Ian, of what's left to be considered as a deduct alternate.
There is no list, Pat.
That was kind of my question too. Court sent an email I saw with a request for the latest value engineering log. Is that possible that we see what those ideas were?
And then we put that next to everything that comes into Dawn, and we've got a big menu to work from.
No, it's not gonna work like that at all.
It's
No,
not
no,
gonna work that way.
no. We're not
Why would
revisiting.
we not, why would the committee not be able to consider a list of possibles? I don't get it.
We're not gonna add back to the old VE log
No,
items.
no, this would be what's remaining.
It's like
Maybe
the
I
pathway
misunderstood
to
you.
100 million, the
Misunderstood.
remaining items that were on the path to 100 million. We talked a lot about the gym, a lot about the auditorium. There were a lot of little nitpicky things that we didn't really review in detail. I think those are on the log that we don't have access to. And, we could talk
Well,
about whether they're
You
feasible.
have access to all the drawings and all the documentation on the whole situation. And you have tons of.
I've been looking in the box. I'm sorry for interrupting the court. I hope this is on the same link, the same line that or Pat, you originally had the question. The VE log, the full log of items, I don't see that in the box drive or what files that have been shared with me on Google. And maybe that's my mistake, but if those could be shared again, that could give us a head start in preparing some recommended options.
Yeah,
that
so
we could discuss.
it was not sent as part of this package. There was a final VM log that documented every single VM item that was discussed and voted on by this committee, whether it was rejected or accepted. So that was out there in previous correspondences. I think the challenge here is that anything that is shown as a deduct alt at this point, SMMA needs time to document that properly for the bid documents. So, a lot of these items that are on the VM log are impacting the design one way or another. And, we can't ask them to keep doing rework on these items. We have to.
Ian, that doesn't square with Lorraine telling us she's comfortable waiting a month.
For items.
To discuss.
Go ahead, Lorraine.
Yeah, for items to discuss. So where I think, and maybe I misunderstood you, Pat. So Ian, the only list that we would be working from is the list that we had said this does not have a time impact for us.
Yeah.
That is, so sorry, I thought you wanted the whole VE log. Sorry.
No. I think it's just what's sort of left out there, like the fields.
Okay. I think I misunderstood you.
Yeah, I have no desire to go back into the whole.
Okay.
Caboodle.
So we would need to pull out the VE list that was minimized to this does not have a time impact, and that was a while ago. And to see, there are still things on there that are specification change, that are different things that we could do as a deduct alternate. So as long as it's that list, my apologies, Pat, I misunderstood.
Yeah, no, I probably wasn't clear. This is all.
It was the narrower list, Ian.
Yeah.
Yep. We had a few versions of the list. So it's the list of things that can be changed without impacting the design schedule, right?
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And while I say court that I'm waiting until the next meeting, it's because our team has to keep going. So, I've got to keep the team moving for the schedule.
No, I understand that. I just know that this committee is being sent back now to alt deletes, and time is a factor for us.
Yep.
And just to be clear, not everything can be considered as a deduct alternate.
Right.
For the reasons I gave earlier, some of them affect other trades and multiple, were different than like a material change or a complete reduction, like, the fields, taking the fields off the scope and recognizing that would be a future project. So in some ways, those are, simpler because they're clear things that are not clear or that affect multiple trades become very confusing as a deduct or an add alternate.
This is the list. It's a 2-page list.
Okay, can you share that again? Just send an email
Yep,
out. to
I'll send
everyone.
it out.
That way
to the
everyone has
group
it
right
in the
now.
top of
But
their inbox.
essentially, it's items that can be removed with no time impact.
Yep.
We're identified here, so.
I think that, and for those that keep record, like have folders, that it was the last meeting, I think that was shared out. So, but if you share it again, everyone has it. So,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay. Matt Johnson?
Yeah, so I just wanted to report that I've been having a little dialogue back and forth with Kari Tari, our town clerk, and we actually don't have to have the election on February 24th. There was some, I guess it was just a gap in communication in that the assumption was we need to have 35 days from the date that we vote in the select board, the election language for the ballot. However, because the ballot doesn't specify any amount, we can vote that language before the special town meeting. And so as a result, that 35 days can be compressed because we can choose an earlier meeting. And that it isn't too late to make a change, even though the schedule indicates it from a legal perspective, there isn't. So now I'm not saying that the date will change. What I will do is I will bring up this topic at our November 28th select board meeting and then see what the will of the board is.
Excellent. That was going to be my question. Whose decision is that, Matt? And
It's
I
the board's
believed it to be select board, but I wanted to be sure. Okay. All right. Very good. So we'll wait until, what did you say, the 28th you have your next meeting?
That's when I intend to bring this before the board. I was going to do the ballot language as well as the date at that time. I mean, clearly, the earlier we can get a firm date, the better. I thought we already had one, so it is a little strange to change it, but I think it's still early enough.
I do think so. And I want to be clear as we share out kind of big dates and information to the community. Should we say February 24th or should we say TBD or should we say?
Well, the date, unless something changes, that's the date.
Okay.
Well, actually, no, I think when we vote the language, we also vote the date and that day. So it's still a date on the calendar. It's a tentative date, but yeah.
Okay.
I think it's a TBD. I mean, I really feel very strongly that.
No, we did vote a schedule for special town meeting that included this date. So we have voted the date. It's just not legally the election date until we vote the language of the ballot question, I believe. Again, I'm a little bit over my skis right now, but I think that's what the process is. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. I think you've heard from our committee that we are hopeful that.
Yeah, I'm sensitive to it as well.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly it's not an ideal timing.
Right. Thank you for hearing us and thank you for following up with Kari and getting that information. And I guess we'll stay tuned and maybe we stay tentative as we share out information so that folks can continue to stay engaged and know when the date, if it does change.
Yeah, I'm just amazed that it got this far before anybody noticed.
I was shocked, actually, Lori.
Nobody has mentioned it. Nobody at all.
I'm going to be at Sunday River. Like I will not be in town that day. So yeah. So anyway, yes, thank you for it's always on Lori's mind when there's vacation, but I guess in my mind, it's so far away, it hadn't even registered. So appreciate you bringing that to our attention, Lori, and Matt will take our concerns and our feedback to the select board on the 28th. So thank you. Heather.
Thanks. I don't want to drag this out. I actually just had a quick question back on the deduct alt list building process. I just wanted to clarify. I thought from all the discussion earlier that what I heard, and I want to clarify that right, is that the more different things we have as deduct alts, the more confusing it can be, and that can actually hurt the bids, I think is what you're saying. So I just wanted to clarify, as we look at this list of things that does not include, that would not affect the timeline schedule, do we want to say that we won't even consider things that are very small numbers? Because I'm assuming we don't want to go with a list of like 20 deduct alts, right? Because
Correct.
that would make
No.
for a bad bidding situation. So we want to keep it to a very few impactful line items. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify. That was my understanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather.
Great. All right, anything else on any of those items? I know SMMA has an information on permitting, and then I'm hopeful to get to, thank you for everyone hanging in there. And then I'm hopeful we'll get to, is that a quick update on the permitting, Lorraine?
Sure. Yep. So we got our MEPA certificate. We got our DEP approval on our septic system. We got our planning board recommendation to the ZBA, and we got our approval at ZBA.
Wow, congratulations. That's no small feat in Concord.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Big milestones.
Yeah,
Big milestones.
great. Thank you for those that
It's
haven't been paying
huge
attention.
effort by the team. Huge
Yeah.
effort by the team.
Huge, yeah. So thank you to the professionals for all of that hard work that's been happening, but not be, necessarily been reported on for obvious other reasons with budget issues and, in the foreground. So thank you for doing all that work in the background, because it's no small feat. So thank you for reporting that out. And just so everyone knows, that clears the path for having this project happen. So that's excellent news. All right, very good. Let's go to public comment. If anyone's still hanging out waiting, stayed with us for 2.5 hours. Do we have anyone who, Christine Reynolds, I see your hand and your face. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Dawn. Just, I guess, a comment. I'm a little bit confused about the vote earlier. So my understanding of what the select board did by moving the number to 110 for the warrant article was to provide additional room between your VE determined cost and potentially what you would get at bid, right? So I think it was $1.6 million or $1.9 million, somewhere in there in terms of the change. It was not for additional scope. So I'm a little confused as to your vote to retract the 275 in VE. I understand the concept of the alt delete, but I don't think that was the purpose. The budget does not, the intent here was not to push you to 110 for a budget. It should not be assumed that that's the budget, right? It's a not to exceed. The assumption is you'll stay where you need to be. So I'm just a little bit confused by that and how that's going to be interpreted. I suppose we'll have more conversation about it this evening, but that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Tracy Morano, good morning.
Hi there, Tracy Morano, 39 Partridge Lane. I am on the Concord School Committee, but speaking as a resident, so not representing the school committee at all. I'm really glad to see the bleachers and the wood ceiling back in again. I think that at the end of the day, this is a building that children need to be in. And we've had some issues over at the middle school this week in particular. And so we need other spaces that can hold an entire class or an entire school of children. And that's very much what we need to be thinking about, is that this isn't about basketball. It's not about a gym. It's about a school that kids need to be in. And there are many, many schools around and they all have bleachers in them. So I'm really glad that that came back in, because I do think that that does have to do with the educational needs of the school. And I think it was just unfortunate that the vote got taken last week without any consult from our school professionals. So thank you.
Thank you, Tracy, for your comment. Dean Banfield.
Hi, Dean Banfield, 73 Walden Terrace.
Oh, I can't hear you, Dean.
I don't mute it. You can't hear me?
No, I mean, I can, but it's muffled. It's almost like you're talking behind glass or something. Can others hear him?
Is that better?
No. Speak again.
Is that better?
A little bit.
A little bit. Okay. You guys exhausted the limit of my AirPods, so I had to go to the wired headphones. And now
That's not unusual.
I want to thank you all for all the hard work you guys have done. And I know that there's more work ahead on this whole concept of alt deletes. But I think there's one thing that I would just like to stress, and that the concept of an alt delete should not be used as a mode for, in effect, deferring and increasing the budget. This idea of not funding a playing field at the tune of $1.5 million would in effect leave us with no playing field, which we would then have to build. So I would like to, I'm happy to see you engaging with further strategic means of, managing the budget, but it should not be in a way that in effect says we're not managing the budget. We're just deferring expense to a future date. So that's just something I would like to make sure that I've expressed as my hope for the way the alt deletes are considered. Thanks.
Thank you, Dean. Any other public comments today? Wilson Kerr, I think I see your hand.
Yeah, hi, thanks. I just wanted to comment real quick on something that Alexa said, and I second that. I think this is my 30th hour of sitting in on these meetings as an interested citizen of Concord.
I missed something. Can you say it again?
Every time I say that word, it catches it. And that is that this building committee continues to be apparently dominated by a contingency that wants more cuts. And I just want to comment on something Christine just said about, oh, wait a second, just because the select board voted to increase this sort of quote unquote cap to 110 doesn't mean that's what we should go for. The voters voted at 95% at the special town meeting and 474 for the plan that has not changed. In fact, it's gone down by $2 million with some cuts that have already been discussed and thankfully are now coming back onto the table. So I just wanted to echo Alexa's comment about this, what apparently is this gross overrepresentation of a minority regarding the need for cuts. The penny wise pound foolish approach we see and are still dealing with a decade of fallout from the high school. And it baffles me that we continue to try and cut, and that is so overrepresented. And I just wanted to thank Alexa for her comment. And I also wanted to recognize, sort of the pain in Lori's voice. And I hope that you guys can hear that regarding those wood tiles. These are not small things when you walk into a 50-year school. And a continued thanks for all of the work you guys are doing on this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wilson. Any other public comments today? No? Okay. Next steps meeting, I think we talked about that. The 15th is what I heard that the next meeting was scheduled for. There'll be a lot. Sorry, go ahead, Ian.
That's correct.
Okay, same time, same place, 7:30 a.m. on the December 15th. In the meantime, tonight's FinCom public hearing, there'll be multiple coffees. There'll be lots of opportunity to engage. First Friday on December 2nd. So we heard all of that earlier, but just as a reminder, if anyone wasn't with us. So, all right, very good. And is there anything new business of any sort that we need to address? No? Oh, Chris?
Yeah, I don't want to say new business, but I want to remind everyone and especially appreciate the hard work and the debate that everyone's brought to all of these issues. And I think the public is beginning to appreciate just how difficult and how challenging all these are. But the process amounts to a vote. So for example, many of the votes to retain things or to cut things have been 8-4, 8-3. I don't believe the minority, to the extent we can even understand that, is dominating anything. I think these are typical processes and they're difficult and folks are spending a lot of time. Here we are at 10:05. And I think most of the public probably understands that and appreciates the work. I know when I hear feedback from people, what I hear from everyone is, thank you for putting in the time. And I pass those thanks along to each and every member of this committee, because there's no doubt everybody who's sitting here cares very deeply about coming up with a project that will succeed and will create a great middle school. So that's just my 2 cents at the end of the meeting. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you, Chris. And I echo the thanks of everyone because it is time consuming and has been a long process. So much appreciation for everyone and their time and commitment to this project. So thank you, Chris, for the reminder. Okay, anything else before we adjourn? No? All right, we'll see everyone on the 15th, if not before, and for those attending tonight, we'll see you then.
Thanksgiving.
Happy
Bye,
Thanksgiving,
everyone.
everyone.
Thanks,
Yep,
guys.
thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day.